those from the north who always think they are the face of values, the rest have to follow. It's a big mistake. It's not true. We have values too. We here in Rwanda, in Africa, we do. No question about it.
Short of actually declaring war, it is the final expression of diplomatic dudgeon, the expulsion of ambassadors and the shuttering of embassies. Given the frequency and intensity with which countries fall out, it might seem amazing it doesn't happen more often, but it is a step usually only taken very reluctantly, as may be demonstrated by considering the instances in which it hasn't happened. Russia, for example, has in recent years more or less openly conducted assassinations on the territory of the United Kingdom, using methods which could very well have caused mass casualties and launched Europe's biggest land war in 8 decades. And yet, Russia's embassy remains open for business in Kensington Palace Gardens. However, in Brussels and Kigali this week, flags are being hauled from their poles, ceremonial crockery carefully packed, possibly incriminating documents shredded, flights home hastily booked. Belgium and Rwanda have severed diplomatic relations and instructed each other's diplomats to push swiftly off. The spat erupted earlier this week after the European Union imposed sanctions on several people associated with the Rwandan military and the Rwandan proxy militia M23, which in recent weeks has conquered a chunk of the Democratic Republic of Congo, seizing 2 cities, Goma and Bukavu, home to perhaps 3 million people between them. Rwanda's only gold refinery is also on the EU's list, along with the CEO of Rwanda's Minerals Board, over accusations that they are complicit in processing and trading resources pillaged from the DRC. It was in response to this that Rwanda threw out the Belgians, and in response to that Belgium threw out the Rwandans. The reasonable listener might note at this point that the sanctions were applied to Rwanda by the EU, i.e. by 27 countries, and wonder why Rwanda has retaliated against Belgium and not the other 26. There is, you will be unastounded to learn, an amount of history involved. We'll need some of that swirling mists of time music. Ironically, it is in the Democratic Republic of Congo that Belgium is really regarded as the villain, and not without reason. The inaccurately named Congo Free State of the late 19th to early 20th century, exploited as a personal fiefdom by Belgium's King Leopold II, is justly infamous even by the standards of imperialist plunder. Its people were terrorised and tortured and died in their millions. Belgium didn't behave quite that badly in Rwanda, which it snatched from German East Africa in 1916 as Germany's fortunes in World War I ebbed, but few much like nor fondly remember a foreign overlord, and indeed Rwanda doesn't. Belgium ruled what was then the territory of Rwanda and neighbouring Urundi as a military occupier from 1916, under a League of Nations mandate from 1922, and as a United Nations Trust territory from 1946. Belgium sent governors who directed affairs via a succession of kings of Rwanda and just the one longer-lived king of Urundi, Mwambutsa IV. The Rwandan kings were Tutsis, unlike most of their subjects, who tended Hutu. The Belgians encouraged the idea of the Tutsis as a born-to-rule elite. The Tutsis were happy enough to go along with this, the Hutus less so. Rwanda and Burundi became independent in 1962. Rwanda had become a republic shortly before, and Burundi became one shortly after, but the new arrangements only inflamed overhanging Tutsi-Hutu rancor in Rwanda in particular, where the new government was largely comprised of the Hutu majority and took out its resentments on the Tutsis, tens of thousands of whom fled a series of anti-Tutsi legal measures and vicious pogroms.
They got identity cards, national identity cards from them, indicating whether you are Hutu or Tutsi. And they were all made, all those who were supposed to be Tutsi, were seated in one line. And then they killed about 10 people.
These tensions erupted in horrifying fashion in 1994, when at least 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were slaughtered by Hutu militias in barely 100 days. Belgium had by then repositioned itself as an encouraging friend of the Hutu regime, trying to steer it away from sectarian vengeance and towards dialogue and cooperation between communities, perhaps even becoming a sort of Central African Belgium, but this was at best naive. When the massacres began, among the earliest casualties of the Hutu paramilitaries known as the Interahamwe were 10 Belgian soldiers serving with the United Nations Rwanda peacekeeping force UNAMIR, who were hacked to death attempting to protect Rwanda's Prime Minister Agatha Uwilingiyimana. Rwanda has never entirely forgiven Belgium for, as Rwanda's current government sees it, creating the schism which led to genocide and responding complacently as it loomed. In 1998, Belgium's then Prime Minister Guy Verhofstadt travelled to Kigali and begged forgiveness.
Pour honorer la mémoire des victimes du génocide.
President Paul Kagame of Rwanda is not, however, the forgiving sort. Kagame has been president of Rwanda since 2000 and effectively in charge since 1994, when he led the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a militia founded by Tutsi exiles in Uganda, on a brisk conquest of Rwanda that ended the genocide. Kagame has this week accused Belgium of being in the grip of what he described as neo-colonial delusions, which, Belgium must be severely tempted to retort, is fine talk coming from someone presently engaged in the invasion of another country and the looting of its resources. As is often the case in diplomacy, the line between criticism and projection is a thin one. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.